All right, he joins us throughout the NHL playoffs, and he gives us the NHL overview, and you can see him on NBC. He works with, among other people, one of my favorites, and Eddie Olczyk, my old buddy, who is also an analyst there. And Sunday is Hockey Day in America, which Pierre can explain to me because I have no idea what that means. But, Pierre, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Mike. Great to visit with you.
All right, what does Hockey Day in America mean?
It means that we're celebrating the great sport of hockey all across the United States, and NBC will have 4 NHL games on that day. I'll be working with your friend Eddie Olczyk and the legendary Doc Emrick out in Minnesota, Boston Bruins, the defending Stanley Cup champions.
Wonderful man, Doc Emrick, and a great announcer and a great guy, too. Yes, you work out. That's good people.
Partner.
That is good people. Emrick and Eddie O are good people to work with.
Yeah,
yes.
Fantastic. I agree.
And, all right, so you're going to do wall-to-wall hockey, and Pierre will be a part of it. You can see it on NBC and on the NBC Sports Network, which used to be Versus. Now it's the NBC Sports Network, which is a lot better than Versus. As far as sounding, I don't know if they're better yet on the air, but they sound better than Versus.
The ratings are up, Mike.
Good. That's all that matters. All right, Pierre, first question. Here we go out of the box. Are the Rangers for real?
Yes. Absolutely. Depth in goal, phenomenal impact player in Henrik Lundqvist, great depth on defense led by Danny Girardi and Ryan McDonough. Now with Mark Stahl coming back, that's huge news. And then you look at the quick strike offense of Marian Gaborik, the way Derek Stepan and he have created this great bond. You look at the acquisition of Richards in the offseason and what he's been able to do of late, in particular. Nisimov being able to move from center to the wing. He's fit in very well. And also you look at the role players, whether it's Brian Boyle, whether it's Brandon Dubinsky, whether it's Brandon Prust, whether it's Johnny Mitchell, whether it's Michael Rupp. They've got all the key ingredients you have to win, Mike.
Would you trade for some offense? Like callers have been calling up about Nash. Would you make a trade, or would you leave it alone and go with what you have now?
I would think about making a trade as long as I could get some additional scoring. I don't think you really need to do much on the defensive side of things, but I wouldn't mess with my roster, Mike.
Either would I. Now I would trade. Yeah. Now they have a deep farm system, right?
They do. Their top prospect is Chris Kreider. He's an A prospect out of Boston College. I would say that if the Rangers were ever going to make any kind of deal with Columbus, and if Columbus wants to make a responsible deal on Nash, Kreider would have to be part of that, and I'm not sure the Rangers are in a rush to do that. And then the other thing you have to look at, Mike, is they've got a real good prospect by the name of Jesper Fast. He's a Swedish player who broke his ankle this year, and nobody really knows whether he'll bounce back from him or not 100%, but he's a tremendous prospect. But the Rangers are not prospect poor; they're prospect rich.
Would you? So, do you think they need to make a deal, or do you feel confident they have enough scoring on the power play to get to a Cup final?
I really wish they'd add one more pure scorer, just to make the power play a little bit more successful and more consistent, just to alleviate some of the potential shutdown pressure. Let's just say you're playing a matchup with Boston in the Eastern Conference Final, and you have to go against Zdeno Chara, you have to go against Johnny Boychuk, you have to go against Dennis Seidenberg, and if you're Marian Gaborik and you're Derek Stepan, that could cause some problems in a straight matchup game. So that's one of the reasons why you need one more additional scorer, I think, which could break down some of those matchups. Now, that's just in a perfect world. As long as you don't have to mess with your organizational identity that you've created this year. And I look at Ryan Callahan as a captain, Mike, and I have to tell you, and I know you're into this stuff, the captaincy of a hockey team is a very important thing. And when you have a captain that's your hardest worker, your most diligent player, and a guy that will do whatever it takes to win, like Ryan Callahan does, everybody else follows. Because if they don't feel like they're part of the group.
Right, yeah. Unlike, say, wearing a captain for a Jet uniform, which we know doesn't mean much. I got the message. And you're right, Callahan's been a big leader and a big player on the Rangers. As a matter of fact, Callahan might be on the show tomorrow. So, he has been... I understand, a very big part of this. Right now, Pierre, we're talking with Pierre McGuire. Would you, right this day, pick them to be your team out of the East?
I picked them to be in the Final Four right now.
Well, who's your other team in the East?
I think it could be one of two, Boston or Pittsburgh.
All right, which matchup would you be more worried about for the Rangers?
The matchup I'd be more worried about would be Boston because the overall depth down the middle of their lineup. When you look at starting with David Krejci, Patrice Bergeron, Chris Kelly, and then Gregory Campbell, and then you look at what we talked about on defense was Zdeno Chara, Dennis Seidenberg, Johnny Boychuk, Andrew Ferentz, and McQuaid. And then you look at their depth in goal with Rask and Thomas, and they're defending Stanley Cup champs, so they're not going to be intimidated by a big moment. That's the one team that I think can cause huge matchup problems for the Rangers. But that being said, the Rangers beat them the other night, 3-0 in Boston, and Henrik Lundqvist was spectacular. The shots in that game were basically 2-1 in favor of Boston. But Lundqvist is a great equalizer, Mike. He's a huge equalizer, and that's one of the parts about playoff hockey people don't talk enough about. Yeah, it's hockey, but it should be called goalie.
It is goalie, and that's why you run into one. And let me ask this, because it's been brought up a lot. Has Lundqvist been as good in the playoff as he needs to be, or has his playoff performances so far been a little below what we've seen from him in the regular season?
There's two ways to answer that. In the NHL, I think his playoffs have probably been a little bit below where he's been during the regular season, but I watched him and I called the game with Doc Emmerich and John Davidson in the '06 Olympic gold medal game between Sweden and Finland, and he was a huge difference maker for the Swedes in that game. Huge difference.
So you
maker.
think he can be a big money maker? You think he could be a big money goalie for them this year?
I really do. I believe it. Right now, there's two players basically leading the way for the Hart Trophy, which is the MVP of the National Hockey League. Evgeny Malkin in Pittsburgh and Henrik Lundqvist in New York.
All right. If the Rangers don't make the finals, what went wrong?
There are a couple things. One, I think maybe because they're so fearless when it comes to blocking shots, they had some key injuries. I think that would be a problem. The power play went bad. I think that could be a problem. Or they weren't able to get enough 5-on-5 scoring. I think those are the three things. But the number one thing that concerns me, and you can't control it as a coach and you can't control it as a general manager, these guys are so fearless and so committed to blocking shots, Mike. I think about, if a guy like Chara can shoot the puck over 100 miles an hour, you get in the lane against him and he hits you in a bad spot, you break a foot, you break an arm, you break a hand, you break a rib, you're in trouble. And the Rangers, whether it's Dan Girardi, whether it's Ryan McDonough, whether it's Ryan Callahan, whether it's Brandon Dubinsky, Brandon Pruss, Brian Boyle, doesn't matter. These guys are so fearless blocking shots, Mike. It's a huge issue. And I think if they get a key guy hurt because of that, that could be one of those problems they face in the playoffs.
Talking with Pierre McGuire about hockey. You'll see him on NBC this weekend. Who's the best team in the West?
Right now, Detroit is, but Vancouver's pushing hard, and I wouldn't be surprised to see San Jose make a pretty major deal.
Who's the best goalie in the West?
Well, Pekka Rinne in Nashville right now. Pekka Rinne's phenomenal. I'd say if most people don't see him play, Mike, he's just a spectacular talent. He's 6'5", 215 pounds. He was 258th in his draft year, Mike. He was an unbelievable steal.
So that makes them a sleeper in the playoffs?
Yes, because of their depth on defense. Nashville could be somebody's worst nightmare in the first round. You don't want to get Nashville, and you don't want to get St. Louis in the first round if you're one of the upper echelon teams.
Is Tortorella a good playoff coach in your mind?
He is. He's an outstanding playoff coach. When I was coaching in the league, I coached against John. I've always respected John. I worked with him at TSN in Canada. He's a very good hockey mind. He runs a very, very disciplined group, and his players clearly respect what he does. So, no, John's a very good playoff coach.
We're talking with Pierre McGuire, NBC, and this weekend, Hockey Day in America on NBC on Sunday. So the picture you're painting, Pierre, this should be a very big spring at Madison Square Garden for the Rangers.
Oh, I definitely think so. Again, barring injury, Mike, this should be a very good spring for the New York Rangers. And Mike, sometimes you got to lose to learn how to win. And I think losing to Washington last year in the first round helped these guys in terms to understand what they have to do to be committed to go to the next level. And obviously they had some young ones that were learning how to play last year. Stepan out of Wisconsin and obviously McDonough out of Wisconsin. But now those kids are not kids anymore. Now they're proven professional players, and they're good professional players. And I also think you watch the development of a Brian Boyle, and you watch the development of a Brandon Dubinsky, who's just starting to scratch the surface offensively. This team is in a very good position going forward. Mike, for all these years the Rangers did it wrong. They're finally doing it right. They're drafting, they're cultivating, they're developing, and now you're seeing the finished product. And I'm telling you, they are not prospect poor, Mike. They're very prospect rich.
And there's a rumor say they're still there. I don't know if he's there or not really, but I mean there is a rumor that he's still somewhere around there. So I don't know, So there is a rumor, and no one's seen him in years, but there is a rumor that he's not in Banff all the time, that he is around. He doesn't do interviews. He hasn't been interviewed in years and years, but there are rumors he's somewhere around the club somewhere. So we have heard that. Last year, Pierre, if I remember, talking with Pierre McGuire, you told me Washington was the most talented team. Now, they booted the coach out, right? Now, What's gone wrong? Is Washington just beat up this year? Why is Washington not doing so well?
No Mike Green, which is a huge problem. Now they might get him back. He's one of the preeminent offensive defensemen in the National Hockey League.
Weren't they the most talented team last year?
Last year they were, but
Okay.
they didn't have the same heart. They didn't have the same determination, and they basically mailed it in against Tampa. Tampa had more heart, Tampa had more desire, and Tampa in the end had more skill.
And what about this year? So they're missing guys this year. Is that their big problem?
Missing guys, and I can tell you right now, Alexander Ovechkin is not a star player like he used to be.
Why not?
He just looks slow. He looks a step slow. He's a one-trick pony right now. He's got to be a whole lot better, and if he's not, it's a problem. Alexander Semin's been a gross underachiever for them this year, and they brought in a ton of character guys in the offseason, but for some reason it hasn't clicked. It's been a science experiment gone wrong.